from distraction. That's the T.S. Eliot insight. Even a right-wing brother like T.S. Eliot's got insights. He knows the shallowness and the hollowness of a culture that evolves around just money and status and spectacle. And then the left trying to provide some alternative, so weak, so feeble, and in the end, unable to generate what is required. I mean, I think in many ways that a full-throated fascism in America is on the way. Because if the only counter-statement is a Democratic Party that is so militaristic, that is so spiritually empty, that yes, has positions on reproductive freedom that I agree with, yes, concerned about the peaceful transfer of power, yes, is concerned about creating conditions under which there could be some grassroots organizing and so on. I understand that, and I don't think people are demons if they disagree with me and vote for Harris. I just disagree with them. That's not a genuine anti-fascist position. It's a stopgap. It's simply a postponement. The fascism is there in the hearts and minds of the people, and it's escalating. If you don't speak to those hearts and minds, provide a genuine alternative, then the empire is in fact headed toward a full-throated fascism. And any talk about democracy becomes so empty. And I must say, the various attacks on me trying to get on the ballot, I mean, the Democratic Party's anti-democratic attacks on me does not manifest any kind of deep commitment to democracy. And that's true for the third party members of different people. It's true for Sister Jill, it's true for Sister Claudia, it's true for Brother Chase, it's true for so many other third parties.
So the nemesis, Ralph Nader's nemesis was the Democratic Party. They spent millions of dollars.
Well, he told me on the phone the other day, they had like 21 legal suits against him simultaneously. Now, I've had a whole host of suits against me, and of course it means you have no money for the most part, but not like Ralph. I mean, Ralph to me is one of the towering figures in terms of his willingness to jump into the electoral politics. That's why I supported him early on in 2000, and he's still at it. I mean, it's amazing how he's still at it. But you're right.
I want to ask about Gaza. Didn't Baldwin say that white supremacists confuse ignorance with innocence?
Who was that?
That when they talk about Baldwin, didn't he say that the white supremacists confused ignorance with innocence? That what they described by essentially positing themselves as innocent, it was based on a willful ignorance of what was actually taking place.
Right, but the ignorance and the willful ignorance went hand in hand with an extravagant, intense hatred. So there's a concrete dimension to it, which is just the sheer hatred of black people. But at the same time, there was an ignorance about the situation that produced their hatred, which is not just hating black bodies, but also exploiting black bodies. That's the economic dimension. That's the role of the capitalist mode of production, which sits at the center of how white supremacy operates. That's part of my critique of my dear brother Coates years ago. Remember? I love Coates' hatred of white supremacy. But where is your critique of the relation of white supremacy to capitalism and in relation to imperialism? And then, of course, courageously, where's your practice? Now, I'm glad to see him having his critique of apartheid and genocide and ethnic cleansing now, because remember at that time he attacked us intensely, man. You know, these black public intellectuals making statements about Israel don't know what they're talking about whatsoever. He's writing for an apartheid magazine, Atlantic, with Brother Goldberg and the others facilitating his whole career. They say, hey, wait, brother. We're trying to keep alive a tradition. It's not about you, not about me. We're trying to keep alive a tradition. And he held on to that for many years, but now he's breaking, and that's beautiful. People undergo conversion in that regard. But most importantly here, it's a matter of Baldwin's connection of the hatred and the innocence. But you get this in Melville, you get this in Toni Morrison, you get this in Faulkner, you get this in Flannery O'Connor, all of the great literary figures in the history of the American empire who tried to come to terms with America growing powerful and growing wealthy, but never growing up. Because a sign of growing up as a child is to move from innocence to wrestling with experience to become wise, or as Shakespeare put it, ripeness is all. That's Edgar and King Lear, right? Rightness is all. What is rightness? Moving from childishness and childlikeness into experience with all of its forms of hurt and pain and suffering and domination, and emerging on the other side more compassionate, more courageous, and still wise, and still childlike. See, childlike's not the same as childish. Oh, not at all. Louis Armstrong was childlike. He was one of the greatest revolutionary artists in the history of the American Empire. One of the creators of jazz based on a blues that goes back to Delta, Mississippi, ground zero of black cultural formation. South Carolina's #2. I'm going to be there next week. Meaning what? Meaning that their conception of what it means to be human has always been the leaven in the American loaf. And of course, it became the leaven in the global loaf because black music, of course, is now recognized as one of the most profound conceptions of what it is to be human at its highest levels of genius and talent. And the rest of the world understands that. They catch